Today what I want to do is I want to make a commentary on Hillary Clinton's performance at yesterday's presidential debate. I've previously written a piece called President Trump, in which I looked at the economic policies of Trump. Today I thought I might make some remarks about Hillary. But in the piece that I wrote, I said that I thought that both parties had selected the worst possible candidate, but that Hillary was the least worst candidate. I thought Hillary Clinton was extremely selective with her use of the truth. There were two areas that I'd like to cover, which are the areas that I know about. Firstly is the US economy, and secondly is foreign policy in the Middle East, because at one stage I was a serving member of an Australian embassy in the Middle East. Firstly, her comments about the origin of the financial crisis, which she blamed on the Bush administration. Pretty much everybody knows that the origins of the financial crisis were in subprime loans. It is a matter of record that subprime loans first appeared in the first term of William Jefferson Clinton, under the administration of the Secretary of the Treasury, Robert Rubin, who had previously been 26 years a member of Goldman Sachs. Now, the idea of subprime loans were very commendable. They wanted to provide housing loans to people who couldn't afford deposits. Now, we do the same thing in our system by providing grants, first owner grants for people to provide those deposits. But the American administration, the Congress, wanted to do this without spending any money, so they invented the idea of the subprime loan, which is basically a home loan that doesn't require any deposit. Now, with all the force of a bad idea whose time has come, subprime loans flourished during the 1990s. They flourished and the business grew dramatically, to the point where they were then incorporated in asset-backed securities, and these asset-backed securities would have low risk as long as the price of houses continued to go up. Now, this reached a point of such conviction that in 1992, under the Basel II Agreement, these subprime loans packaged as asset-backed securities could be rated AAA, and those AAA asset-backed securities could be incorporated as Tier 1 capital in banks, in international banks, and as a result of that, banks could put money into these effectively put money in these subprime loans without allowing any buffer. So this generated an enormous explosion of the investment in these subprime loans, and that is what generated the financial crisis. Now, in response to that, we now have, as I pointed out earlier in the year in a piece that I wrote about the re-regulation of US banks, that banks are now out of this area, that Tier 1 capital has been increased, and the areas that under the Volcker rule that US banks can now invest in has been enormously restricted. And that's what actually happened in the financial crisis, and no, it was not the fault of the Bush administration. Bush administration was merely continuing the policies of the Clinton administration. Moving to the area of the Middle East, Trump said that in the debate that what had happened is Obama had created a vacuum by leaving the Middle East. Hillary Clinton again blamed this on the Bush administration. They said they'd come to an agreement with withdrawing the troops. Of course, anybody who knows anything about foreign relations knows that the US president of the day could have put pressure on the Iraqi administration so the troops would have been retained in Iraq. But Obama did not want to do that because he was nearing the end of his first term and he had promised to bring the troops home and bring an end to the war. So political purposes were served, the troops went home, and then there was a vacuum into which ISIS could expand, and that's what happened in real life. Now, the third thing is the relative economic impact of both of their policies. Now, this has been both of their policies have been reviewed by the Independent Brookings Institution, and I remarked upon this a month or so ago, and I said that both of them did not achieve high ratings, as I recall. Trump's policy was regarded with a C-, and Hillary with a D+. With respect to their effect on economic growth. So Hillary said that independent assessment was that her policies would generate a high number of jobs growth, and Donald Trump's would achieve big job losses, and that's simply at variance to the fully published international views. Having said that, I now note, as I did on Monday night, that the most accurate forecasts that are available of political races in the United States come from the University of Iowa Electronic Market, which is a combination of, like a poll of polls, but corrected for bias. That currently and what's happened in those markets has been extremely interesting. That as Trump has risen in the polls, what has occurred is that the probability, it's true that the probability of Trump being elected president has risen, but still Hillary has a 63% probability of winning the presidential race on the first Tuesday of November. I always like the fact that the Americans hold the presidential races on the same day as we hold the Melbourne Cup. But if we look at the US Congress, the Republicans will hold the House, which controls the money bills. And the big change over the last month is that the prospects of the Republican Party have risen dramatically in terms of retaining control of the Senate, which makes judicial appointments and confirms members of the cabinet. So what we will probably have is an administration in which Hillary controls foreign affairs and the Republicans control the economy. And based on yesterday's debate, I think that may be the least worst solution.